has to hear from the P, from the mouth of the witnesses, and they cannot hear from a translator, from an interpreter. So Hanu Leuze, they also come with the Rabbah. They're the Leuze, like the Lashon Laz, people that spoke different languages, they also come with the Rabbah. And what happened? Uki Rabbah Targum Beinehem. And Rabbah went and he put an interpreter between these people and him. So it says the Gemara, I'll be happy to do this against the Mishnah. That's lines right there. You can't put an interpreter between the people coming to the court and yourself. Says the Gemara, you're right. Rava made a haviyada, manda havi amri, durihud lo haviyada. Like what often happens, people can understand languages, but they can't respond in that language. So he only established a Maturgaman to respond to them, but he himself understood what they were saying, and therefore there's not a problem. It won't be against the Mishnah. Ilo v'tuvya, krivid arva haves. So there was two people, Ilya v'tuvya, and they were krovim, they were relatives of the Arevs. And Arev is a guarantor, so Reuben borrows money from Shimon, borrows $100. Shimon's nervous that Reuben can't pay him back. They find a third party, Levi, and basically Levi agrees that in the event that Reuben can't pay back, you can come to me. And now the question is, according to the way that Rashi learns the cases, is that these two witnesses were the witnesses to Eidei Halva. They are coming to witness that Reuben, in fact, owes Shimon money. However, they happen to be relatives of the Arev. So, on the one hand, they're not related to Reuben or Shimon, the borrower or the lender. On the other hand, they're related to somebody involved in this case. So, Savra, Papal, and Namer, Gabilovo, Malva, Richigininu. For the Loba and the Malva, the borrower and the lender, they're not related. So, what's the problem? They are allowed to come and testify. To that, Amar Le'Rav Huna, Breder Yeshua, Le'Rav Papa, they're too close, just one step removed. Malva, if you don't have money, the Loba doesn't have money, your next place you're going to is the Malva. So really, the next place you're going to is the Are, if you to the guarantor. So therefore, these witnesses that are coming to testify are going to be invalid because they are relatives, and therefore they're not going to be able to testify about this loan. What exactly is this doing here? It's a good question.
On the previous case about the language, I would think he did hear the Robert did hear them present the case, whatever. And even if he hadn't completely understood it,
no good against the mission. You have to completely understand.
Hearing means you have to not just say it.
You have to understand exactly what they're saying. Says the Mishnah, Misha Nigmar Dino Baruch Valavneo. So Bezdin in Sosun as Dino. You have a guy, he goes to court and is convicted. Now he runs away. And then he comes back to the same exact court. So do you redo the case? Says the Gemara, no. Ain Sosun as Dino. You don't redo the case. Rather, you're going to kill him. Since at one point you already established the case, you're not going to go back now and redo it. Sounds like, but if you'd run away and go to a different court, maybe you would do it. We'll see. The Gemara's going to ask. Kol makom sheyamdu shnayim. Anytime you're yamdu shnayim, the yomer, you have two people that come and say, we are testifying about so and so person, about Reuven, shenigmar dino b'bezdin ploni, whose verdict was final in so and so court. Uploni Edav, and those two people were his witnesses. So therefore, Harei say Yahare. This person is going to be killed, no matter what. Sanhedrin, parenthetical sounds like, Sanhedrin no Heges. Mishnah throws this in. They ask why. By the way, a Sanhedrin can be either in Israel or outside of Eretz Yisrael. Okay. Now, a line that's quoted very often. Sanhedrin hareges echad b'shavua nikres chovlanis. Shavua here doesn't mean a week; it means every 7 years. If a Sanhedrin is killed once every 7 years, it's called a chovlanis. It's called a killer court, a bloody court. Yeah. However, Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah Omer echad l'shivim shana. So now He says once every 70 years. The question is he arguing or is he agreeing? Is he? Yeah. Is he saying that no, once every 70 years is a bloody court and he's arguing, or he's agreeing that once every 7 years is a bloody court, but the normal thing is once every 70 years. That's the orach ara. That's the normal way that things are done. That's unclear.
They put it in even once 70.
There's two ways to learn it. Is it arguing or is he agreeing and just adding that that's the norm? Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Kiva Omrim, Ilu Hayinu b'Sanhedrin. If Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Tarfon saying if we were on the Sanhedrin, lo neherag adam ba'olam, nobody would ever be killed. Why? They would ask such good questions. We'll see at the bottom of the Amud. They'll ask such good questions that the witnesses are not going to be able to answer. Where exactly was the wound? Was he already a treifa? Was he already all these exact questions that therefore the witnesses won't be able to answer, and no one's going to be killed. That Rabbi Shimon Omer, Avhein Marvin Shov Kadam B'Yisrael. He disagrees with this approach. He says you're going to be Marvin Shov Kadam B'Yisrael. You're going to be adding killers to the Jewish people. Why you ask such good questions? Even though we usually try to exempt people, but exactly, no one's going to fear the court. So now, how exactly is Rabbi Kiva going to respond to that? I mean, it's just such an obvious statement. You can't have nobody fearing the courts. You have to know how is Rabbi Kiva going to respond to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Okay. Says the Gemara, the first thing he said was whoever verdict is finalized in one court, if he runs away and comes back, we don't redo the case, we kill him. So if they also bezdin hudain sosrin, if they bezdin acher sosrin. In that court, we're not going to redo it, but it sounds like if his verdict is finalized in the court in New York and he runs away and then he ends up in California in another court, so there we will redo the case. The problem is it's against the next line of the Mishnah. It says anytime you come and say if this person had a verdict finalized, and you're coming to say this now in any court, doesn't matter what the court is. If you can come to any court and say that person had a verdict finalized in whatever court he was in, and those two people are his witnesses, so if you can do that, then he's going to get killed, and we're not going to redo the case. So that diak of the Mishnah would imply something which contradicts the next line of the Mishnah. So we have a contradiction of an implication of the first part of the Mishnah to an explicit statement of the next part of the Mishnah. That the Gemara says, Amar Abai lo kash. What's the problem? Kan be'eretz Yisrael, kan b'chutz la'aretz. There's going to be a difference. Where is he going to? Eretz Yisrael or chutz la'aretz? Very interesting. The Tanya, Rabbi Dovid Gleizer ben Dustai Omer, Rabbi Shimon ben Shetach. Barach me'eretz, ma'aretz l'chutz la'aretz. You ran away. So you're in, let's say in Yerushalayim, they finalized your verdict, and you ran away to outside of Eretz Yisrael. You end up in America. So now, Ein Sosrin as Dino. You come to another court, we're not going to redo the case. Rather, we're going to kill you. However, if you go the other way, you have a verdict finalized in New York, and now you made Aliyah, you got the security, and now you're in Yerushalayim, then Sosrin as Dino. In Eretz Yisrael, we will go through the case again. Why? Very interesting. The certain schus of Eretz Yisrael that maybe we could find a some kind of merit to you, and therefore we will redo the case. Now it's interesting that in Eretz Yisrael, though, you still can't go to the same court. That's the implication of the Mishnah. That's the first line of the Mishnah. Misha nigmar dinu, ubarach ubalav oso bezdin, ein sosun as dino. If it's in Eretz Yisrael and you go back to the same court in Eretz Yisrael, it sounds like we're not going to go through the din again. If you're in New York and you end up in Eretz Yisrael, then you will redo it. Right.
I was surprised that it said something like, if you leave from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz, you have this plus now a part of a punishment of Gola. You could punish yourself Gola, and maybe that's not.
Why would that obligate a bezdin to relook at your case again?
No, I'd rather it wouldn't. Saying it was if you came out of Eretz Yisrael, maybe you're going to say, oh, you took the Pagas Sola, now the din might be less.
But the din is here, it's alive. It's a reality. You're someone who has to be obligated to be killed. Yeah. Okay. So now, Sanhedrin Noheges. I think some say the reason why this line's in the Mishnah is what we just said. Now that the previous line of the Mishnah differentiated between Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz, the Mishnah threw in a line that we knew already that Sanhedrin is Nohagen, Bein Eretz Yisrael and Bein Eretz Yisrael, Bein Chutz La'aretz. So it's not totally random because we just made a distinction between Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz. I don't know if it's a raya, it's just related. We knew this already from Sanhedrin. We knew already the Sanhedrin Haggis. This already came up with Daf Yomi Makkot Sanhedrin. So yeah. So Sanhedrin no Haggis, Bein Le'aretz, Bein Chutz La'aretz. Not immediately. How do I know I'm establishing courts not only in Israel but even in outside of Israel? Says the verse in Bamidbar Lamed Hey that should be for you lechukas nishpat, should make judgment lidorosechem, the generations b'chol, and every moshvosechem, like every inhabitant, every place, every moshav, every place where there are people, you should go and make a court. Lamadu l'sanhedrin shenagas b'art u b'chutz la'aretz, b'chol moshvosechem, even in chutz la'aretz, you should make a court. In Cain, if that's true, ma Talmud lomar, what does it say in another context? Devarim tezayin, shoftim v'shotrim, titin lecha, where should you make the judges? You should place them by your gates, b'sharecha. Sounds like b'sharecha ata Moshe b'teidinim. So b'sharecha ata Moshe b'teidinim, b'chol plaku plaku, b'chol ir ve'ir. So it sounds like you only put them in your sharecha, in your gates, but not in every place. What does it mean? It means like this: ata Moshe b'teidinim, b'chol plaku plaku, b'chol ir ve'ir. Plak sounds like it's a bigger area than a city. City's smaller than a plak is maybe Rashi says in a different place. A Medina, it's more like I don't know, more like a district. Yeah. So, yeah, you're as long as it has a sarabak, as long as it's considered already a city. A city can be very small, but a plak is much bigger. So, in Eretz Yisrael, you put in every city and in every province, every county, you make you put judges. But in Chutz La'aretz you only put in the whole plaku plak, only in the larger areas, and you don't put in every single city. Yeah, you don't put in every single city. Okay. I saw that they asked the question from Gemara Sanhedrin that Bnei Noach are obligated to also, one of the seven of Bnei Noach is to put courts. Where do you put courts? B'chol ir ve'ir u b'chol plak plak, in every city and in every county. So it comes out very funny that by the non-Jews, they're going to have outside of Israel, they're going to have courts in every city and every smaller city, every bigger area. And by the Jews in Chutz La'aretz, they only have in every plak and not every year. Comes out a funny thing. Okay. Yeah. Sanhedrin hahoreges, after 7 years, after 70 years. So now. Oh, sorry. What I spoke about earlier was the Gemara's question. Yibailahu. This idea that it's once every 7 years, once every 70 years, what does it mean? Achas l'shivin shana nikbeis havanis. Once every 70 years, it's called already like a harmful bezdin. It's called a murderous bezdin. O dilma orach arahi. Or we're just saying that every 7 years is normal. Of course, every 7 years is considered a very bloody bezdin. The norm is every 70 years. Therefore, if it happens every 7 years or once in a 7 year period, that's going to be a bloody bezdin. So that statement that we had, it's unclear. Is it that opinion arguing, or is it just saying what the norm is, but it's agreeing, and to that we say teku. That we leave it unresolved.
I mean, that usually teku has a halakhic.
So it's a proof from here that tekus apply even by Muslim sort of things. I guess so. So Rabbi Kiva Omrim. Okay, so Rabbi Kiva said, if we would have been there, no one would ever be killed. Okay, so what would they have said that nobody would ever be killed? Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Lazar, the Amri Travayu, Re'isem Treifa Harag, or Shalim Harag. We know a treif is a fatal wound that a person gets that he cannot survive within 12 months. He's going to die within 12 months. So the guy that was killed, was he a treifa? If he's a treifa, and then the person who killed him is not obligated in murder. And if he's not a treifa, then you are obligated in murder.
They can't possibly know.
Oh, exactly. That's what Rabbi Kiva would ask him. And that's why no one would be killed. So Amar Rav Ashi, so let's say they would say he's a shuling. We know for sure, totally healthy guy. We're in the gym with him every morning. We go to JC together, 5:30 in the morning. Nothing wrong with him. We're neighbors.
He plays in the NFL.
Yeah. Shabbos, some Jew. I don't know. Yeah. Amar Rav Ashi intim salomar shuling have. Let's say he be a totally healthy person. However, dilma b'makom sayiv nekev have. But in Mak. Aries is better.
Yes, thank you.
Gary, this is good.
Yes, thank you.
Let's say you say he's a shulling. Then they would ask him, well, that place that the guy killed him with a sword, that hole, did he have a wound in that hole or not? It's also an almost impossible question to try to figure out. Yeah. Now there's an interesting question over here. Those asks, I don't understand. We know that majority of people where they get hit with a sword, they don't have a wound right there. So go bust a robe. How does rove play a factor? How does the majority play a factor over here? But this maybe say this question is ridiculous.
I was asking the first part. Most people aren't traders in general.
Hello.
Most people live more than a year at any given point.
Good question. That's a good question. Yeah, don't ask over here. Malcolm Saif, neck of it. Yeah. Yeah, that's what's good. How exactly does rove play a factor over here? The answer is going to be something along the lines of rove's going to help you by establishing a case of a doubt, but establishing testimony, we don't say bust a rope. You have to have witnesses who are reliable. If they can't answer certain questions, it's going to cause an inconsistency between them. So that's going to be somehow probably there's some kind of difference. Okay.
Most people say this out of Vodavana really did. So we ask them anyway.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is all good by a murder case. But Rabbi Kiva made a statement. If we were on the court, nobody would get killed. Well, murder is only one violation you do to get killed. What about Boel Esa Erva? What about having relations with somebody that you're not allowed to have relations with? That also is a death penalty. So what would Rabbi Kiva ask them? So Habi Boel Esa Erva, Heichi Habi Abdu. What would Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Tarfon say? By Rabbi Amitur Bayu, they would ask them, Re'isim Kimechol B'Shipoferes. Kimechol B'Shipoferes is always like this little tube you put in, like like nowadays you think a panel of Advil out of the bottle is like a little tube that you put in, usually for makeup.
Really see that.
Right. So that's an example of you have to really see the Maisa B. You have to really see the actual act of relations. Did you really see that? Well, that's very hard to see. The Rabbanon. So now, one second. If that's what you need to establish this case, what would the Rabbanon ask them? The Rabbanon Heichi Dainu. The Rabbanon who argue and Rabbi Tarfon, they would go like Shmuel. Damar Shmuel v'menafim mishiyiru kimenafim. He says to see somebody who's adulterous acting like an adulterer. They're sleeping right next to each other. They're acting very inappropriately. So you don't actually have to see the exact act taking place. But even someone who's acting very, very, very inappropriately, you could also ask on that. Now, if you follow the Gemara's logic, what did the Gemara gain? The Gemara asked, how do you kill somebody who killed somebody? How do you kill that guy? And the Gemara's like, oh, how do you kill somebody that had illicit relations? Well, there's other things. Supposed to ask, what about Avodah Zarah? What about Chil Shabbos? I mean, once the Gemara is asking the second case, you can go through all the cases, and what would you ask somebody who's Mechal Shabbos?
And Shmuel's answer is a pretty slippery slope. I mean, whatever, it just sounds like you're getting into circumstantial evidence. You don't fill out. Like the Sanhedrin about it.
And Rashi says by this case, they're doing things like adulterers do. Sheshochan Bekir of Basar. They're sleeping together. The Noagim Tiderek Tash. And they're acting like people act when they have relations. Yeah. I guess you would have to ask them other questions, and then
it's more like they just check into the hotel.
Right. Well, that's interesting because that would say there's a line by in Kiddushin that Hein Hein Eidei Yichud, Hein Hein Eidei Dia, right? That's the idea of the Yichud room. So Isser Yichud, yeah, okay.
But it's Sota we say not.
Hadron Allah, Ketzad, Edom. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Dalus, exile. Yeah, Elohein Agolim, the following people get exiled. Horeg Nefesh Bishgaga, someone who murders somebody inadvertently. So now, what are some of these cases? Haya Ma'agla Ba'Magila, the Nafla Alav Hargaso. So Rashi goes through explaining how they would plaster their roofs. They do some kind of, I don't know, hand saw, some kind of, they would push the plaster onto the roof and then they would pull it back towards them and then push and pull it back towards them. So on your pull, if that went and fell down and killed somebody, then you're obligated to get Golas. We know that you go to the city of refuge because the Goel Adam, the relative of the one who was murdered, is allowed to go and kill you. Exception to the rule. So therefore, we make for you city of refuge, and you can go escape there. Mishal shel bechavis benafla. You're lowering down a barrel, and it falls on somebody. Margaso. Number 3, haya yorid besulam. You're going down a ladder, and whoops, you fell. Benafla, and you fell on somebody. The hargaso, and you killed them. So 3 cases. Harei zeh gola. Aval. Now, exactly why you need all 3 cases, not just say one rule. Maybe the Gemara will talk about it. Avalim haya moshek b'magila v'nafalav v'hargaso. So here moshek is you're pushing your plastic tool. It's very sharp. You're going this way, so now and now it falls hargaso. Or haya dola v'chavis. You're bringing the barrel up, the niftak achevel and the rope broke, the nafla alav, and then it fell. The hargaso, or turning the page, haya ola b'swin, going up on the ladder, the nafla alav, and you fell the hargu. Harei zeh eina gola. Why not? Why not gola? It's also shogeg. You're going up a ladder and you fell on someone and you killed them. But these cases are called karav la'ones. They're karav la'ones. They're too close to an unavoidable accident that you are not going to be obligated. You're not. The goal adam is not allowed to kill you. He'll be liable for murder if he does. Therefore, you cannot go to the city of refuge. But interesting. Therefore, all the cases of Golas is a case which is not ones, it's not unavoidable accident, and it's not karav la'ones, and it's not mazid.
Not even manslaughter.
It's somewhere in the middle. Yeah, okay, somewhere in the middle. Okay. Zeha klal. Here's the rule. Kol shebederach yeridaso gola, v'shelo bederach yeridaso eino gola. The rule is you're killing somebody on the way down. On the way down, that's going to be considered shogeg enough that you go to the city of refuge, you get golas. The shelo b'derech yeridaso eino gola. Okay, which is a hard statement to make because it doesn't depend on every case. Some cases depend on derech yerida, like our Mishnah.
We should have been more careful.
Also, let's see right now. Minan Emili. What's the source of this? That you have to have derech yerida and derech aliyah. Amar Shmuel, the Amar Kra. We're going to now interpret a whole bunch of verses, all related to the getting ghost, getting exile. Amar Shmuel, the Amar Kra, v'yipol avayamas ad sheyipol derech nefila. So in the Memor Lamed Hey, it says v'yipol of in that case you're holding a stone. The stone fell on him, the yamos, and then he killed somebody. So the yipol Allah v'yamos sounds like it fell. It's going down. The yamos ad sheyipol. Ad sheyipol derech nefila. Until it falls down, derech nefila. You have to have derech nefila and not going up. Now let's go through the cases and maybe we'll see what exactly clear at all the rules of how you get exiled. Here comes a long price, not so long. Mishgaga, once again from the Minra Lamed Hey, you have to do it in Shgaga, only do it inadvertently. Prat lemezid, as opposed to someone does it b'mezid, you don't get galas. Bebli das, without knowledge. Prat lemeskaven, excluding someone who did it intentionally. So now, says the Gemara, this is obvious. Mezid pshita. Obviously, if you kill somebody advertently, so that's the Barkatalahu. You're a dead man now. That's obvious. Why would you have thought that you get exiled for that? That's a regular case of murder. So Amarava, Ema Prat Omer Mutter. You have to have Bishkaga to exclude a case where it's la'omer mutter. There's a case which is interesting in Hilchos Shabbos, I think is considered a shogeg. But not here, called omer mutter. You thought it was allowed. You thought murder was allowed. You didn't know. You grew up not religious. I don't know. You thought a guy comes in and drives you crazy. You think you're going to shoot him. Why not? So, but that would not be enough to be considered shogeg. That would probably be already. Yeah. What would that be? That probably amazing. Not carvones.
Also, you're only getting dollars for killing somebody, not being Makam Shabbos that we can't prove or something.
Correct.
These are the only cases.
Correct. But I'm assuming that the Omer Mutter over here. So yeah, it's probably that you don't get gullus because it's more advertent. Give me some machlokas. I have my head maybe some machlokas. So Amar le'avaye, I Omer Mutter. So if it's Omer Mutter, so maybe that's unassumed. Says Gemara, maybe that's that's sort of like an unavoidable accident because he thought it was totally allowed. So therefore, he thought it was totally allowed. It's not even inadvertent. It sounds like inadvertently in an inadvertent accident, you knew it was wrong, but you were climbing down. You're going downwards and not upward. So that he told him back. Omer leishani Omer Mutter Karav Lamezidhu. Omer Mutter, someone which is Karav Lamezid, it's too close to an advertent act, and therefore that now that Raisa makes sense. Bishkaga Prat Lamezid, when you inadvertent act, coming to exclude someone who thought it was allowed, that's still considered too close to Mazid. It's too close to Mazid because even though halachically he didn't know, he thought it was allowed, but his actual act he was doing. If you look at the Maisa that he did, the Maisa is a Maisa. He intentionally killed somebody. He just thought it was allowed. That's already, these cases of Shkaga is the actual act of killing also is happening inadvertently, right? You're going downwards, you didn't mean to hit him at all. Here you tried to kill him, and you did kill him. So it's Karav Lamezid because the ultimate Mazid would be you knew it was wrong and you did it anyways. So here the Maisa was the Maisa that was the Mazid, but the halacha part you didn't know. Okay, fine. The bli das without knowledge, rat limiskaven. So it sounds like only if you do it without knowledge, as opposed to limiskaven where you have intent. So it says the Gemara miskaven pshita. So miskaven is pshita. It's obviously, if you intend to kill somebody, then you're a dead man, and we're going to kill you. Amarabba, what it means is rat limiskaven the hargas of behema, the hargas adam. So you tried to do an act of killing. You're just trying to kill an animal. Then you missed. And you ended up killing a person, but that's not going to get you gullus. Now, what would this case be? Karav la'onis or karav la'mezid? The act you did was an act of murder. You tried to murder an animal. Happens that you missed and you hit a person. Is that already shogeg or is that mezid? So what about saying? But it's not.
I would say if you tried to kill a person, you shot a bow and arrow at a person, and he dropped and it killed the next person.
Right.
That's part of amazing.
Right.
But you still can't.
What's this case? Karav la'mezid or karav la'onis? You shot the animal jumped, and you hit the guy right behind the animal. I don't know.
Did it happen?
What?
It happened in Texas. Some famous person was shoot on a hunt. He killed his fellow hunter.
Uh-huh. In Jewish talk, I don't know. It'd be interesting to know, is this case Karav la'mezid or Karav la'onis? Well, okay. Okay, fine. So they have to figure out is this Karav la'mezid or Karav la'onis. Okay. So now, or Likuti, you're aiming for a non-Jew, Baharagas Yisrael. So that's also going to be excluded. Or Linefel, you tried to kill the baby that doesn't survive 30 days, and then you ended up killing a Ben Kayama, a Bahari Ben Kayama, and instead you killed a Ben Kayama, someone who could survive 30 days. All those cases are excluded from galus, from exile. I don't know. For some, it's hard for me to imagine it's Karav la'onis. Let's see where the Rambam puts it. I'd imagine we'd be closer to Karvel Amazing if I had to guess, but we have to look it up. Okay. Tanur Abanan. Now more interpretations of the verses regarding exile. So the verse tells us in Bepesa. In Bepesa is coming to exclude the Karen Zabit. So Pesa, usually we talk about this like suddenly. So, but Rashi means like right away, somebody who's close to you. So, so when you're going somewhere and you turn the corner, so yeah, it sounds like a guy, let's say you're walking with a knife for whatever reason, and you go and you turn a corner and there's someone close to you that you end up killing. Excluding somebody who's in a Karen Zabis, which means a corner, someone who you saw from a distance. Right? Is that correct? Someone who you saw from a distance who you ended up killing, that's excluded. You saw him or you didn't see him? Saw him.
It excludes
someone who you didn't see. Right. Karen, someone who turned the corner and you happen to not see him and you ended up killing him, that's excluded from exile, as opposed to somebody who you saw in the distance and you
It sounds like you have like a chainsaw, you're cutting down food or something, and you and the other person walk down the front at the same time.
Right. So the pet of Karen Zavis is excluding somebody who you happen to not see. You happen to not see him, I guess that's when you already carve the ones. You turn the corner and there's no way to see him, that's already close to an unavoidable accident. Yeah. Okay, fine, that's one. Below Ava, without hating him, if you hated the guy, and you end up killing him, that's not going to be, that's Karv Lamezid. If you hated him and ended up killing him, even in a shogedic way, that's already Karv Lamezid.
In Austria and Switzerland, they have a lot of different terms. In order to get your driver's license, they have mirrors set up all over the country. In order to get your driver's license, you have to learn how to drive with the mirrors. They have big mirrors on the side of the road because cars come around flying corners all the time. You have to know you're going to be higher than smacking with a car coming around flying corners.
Okay. Hadafo, so to push somebody, shadafo begufo. Shadafo, you have to be pushed with your body without intent. Oh, hishlich alav. Oh, something's thrown at him. Lahabi yerida shehi tzorech aliyah. So this is coming to include a case of yerida, which is the tzorech aliyah, referring to. It sounds like you want to pick something up that's very heavy, so you're going down to pick it up. So like a big accident, you're going down to pick it up, and then you're coming on your way up. So on the way down, I think you're holding it. Like on the way down, you're going to go pick it back up stronger. So even though that's with Tzorech Aliyah, but since you did it B'derech Yerida on the way down, that is still going to be liable for what's called Derech Yerida, even though it's going to come up afterwards. But since right now you did it on the way down, that's still called Derech Yerida. Yeah, below tzdiya, without any tzdiya, like without any intent. So what does that mean? So coming to exclude somebody who was I guess what you're moving as a big rock. You move someone to the side. You're trying to aim to this side and you end up aiming to a different side. So that's not called went the other way. That's not called a shogeg either. Right, exactly. Yeah. At least where I go. Yeah, V'asher lot sada. So there now it says in Shmot Asher lot sada. You planted the first one only 2 amos, and it ended up going 4 amos. So maybe you'd have thought that that's going to be a shogeg. Says where it's not a shogeg. Yeah. Vasher yavo eser ehu biyar. You have to meet the person in the forest. Ma yar rishus is that ulamazik. A yar, a forest, is a domain where both a nizak, the one that got damaged, or the mazik, the damager, they both can go there freely. So to only a place where both the nizak and the mazik can go to is going to be a place where we're going to talk about shogeg as opposed to the chutzner of a balabais, going to someone else's domain, and he ends up killing you there. Sounds like even if it's an unavoidable accident, even if it's a regular case of shogeg, but if you come into the balabais' domain and get killed, so then that's not going to be considered a case of shogeg. It has to be an area where you both go.
So even if it's a neutral, like,
yeah,
not your authority.
Now, what if both you and him go into a third party's yard?
I'm saying even if it's neutral, it sounds like it's excluded.
Correct. That's it. Right. But that'd be interesting.
The yard doesn't belong to either one of them.
Right. But what if you go to someone else's yard? Right. Even though it's not, even though you have no permission to go there.
I would say trot is yours or his? It's only yours.
No, so Rashi says if you go into the balabais, you're the one that got damaged, go into the guy that's damaging you. What would be in the other case would be interesting. You're the damager, and you go into his and damage him in his property. Yeah. Let me talk about it. Yeah. Bo minei Rabbi Abahu. Rabbi Abahu asked the following question about Derech Yerida versus Derech Aliyah. Bo minei Rabbi Abahu mi Rabbi Yochanan. So now, what would happen in the following is Haya Ola B'Sulam. You're going up on the ladder, and now the Nishma Hashliva. Now the step ended up falling off. The Nafla V'Harga. So the actual stair fell off and went downwards and killed somebody. But you were going upwards. So is that considered downwards or is that considered upwards? From the perspective of the brick or the stair that fell down, for sure downwards. From the perspective of what you were doing, you were going up. And it happened to fall down. So that's Rabbi Abahu asked Rabbi Yochanan, what is that considered? I guess not. I guess, or maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened afterwards. So, Kihayi Gavna Aliyahu or Yeridahi. Is that considered Aliyah or is that considered upward or downward? So, Amarle, Kvar Nagata, Yerida, Shehi, Sorech Aliyah. So, we said, this is a case of a Yerida. He considers it a case of a Yerida L'Tzorech Aliyah. You have to push the stair down, but it's pushing you up. And we already said that if it's Yerida, even if it's Tzorech Aliyah, you're still going to be Chayiv Galus for that. So he responded that he thinks that this case is going to be a case of Yerida, Tzorech Aliyah. Okay, now a little bit of 4 cases, but hopefully they're not so complicated. Esrei, let's bring Kasha on this idea that this case of a stair is considered Yerida, Tzorech Aliyah. So Esrei. Says the Brisa. Zakral. Kol shebederech yiridaso gola shalob. Oh no, first time Mishnah. Zakral. Kol shebederech yiridaso gola. Anything which is in a downward fashion, killing in a downward fashion, that you get exiled. Shalob bederech yiridaso ain't no gola. Anything which is not in a downward fashion, you do not get golas. Says the Gemara. Shalob bederech yiridaso le'asviyei mai. Well, if anything in a downward fashion gets gullus, so if you would stop there and only mention that one line, you obviously are going to know anything which is not in a downward fashion, you will not get gullus. So what is the Mishnah adding by saying this second line? So that we say lasviye mai, lav lasviye kayi gavna. Are we not coming to include this case of Yerida L'Tzorech Aliyah and telling you that that is not included in gullus? That's the kasha. So on that, the Gemara says, hold on. What's the case of kol shebederech yiridaso? Any case of downward motion is considered is what gets you exiled. So what's it referring to? Elaleasuye katsav. How do you get the katsav? Straight? What? Of the butcher case. It's a case of a regular case of the butcher where the axe is coming down and it slips out of his hand. So that part of the Mishnah is talking about a regular case. So too, the parallel case is going to be the second case of Mishnah, which is not derech yiridaso. It's also referring to the butcher case. So he's asking that the Mishnah is just going to be parallel to each other. The same way the first line of the Mishnah is just a straightforward case of a katsav, of the butcher, so to the second line of the Mishnah is also a straightforward case of the butcher, and it's not coming to include anything else, which is a little bit of a funny thing because the whole thing was that the first line teaches us something, and the second line is extra. So all the Gemara answers that the first line is teaching a straightforward case. Okay, but the point was that now that you know the straightforward case, you can imply the other case. It's obvious. It's interesting. Like, what exactly the Gemara's thought process is? But it sounds like you want something that's very straightforward. You parallel the first line and the first and the second line of the Mishnah. I don't know. Okay, now let's see this case about the butcher. Tanya, Katsav Shahaya Mikatsev. So now, a butcher that was butchering, yeah, he was slaughtering. So he was chopping up his meat. So we're gonna have 4 brises. Tana Chada, 1 brisa taught the fun of Chayiv Lachor. If in front of you the axe falls off and kills somebody, you're Chayiv Golos. If it's Leachora, if it's behind you it falls, then you're going to be Pater. The Tanya Ida, Lachor of Chayiv and Lefana Pater, the exact opposite case. If it goes behind you, you're Chayiv, and it goes in front of you, you're Pater. The Tanya Ida, whether the axe falls off in front of you or behind you, you're going to be obligated. But Tanya Ida, all cases are mentioned in these 4 brises. So the question is, the contradiction 4 ways. It says the Gemara below Kasha, not a problem. Can be Yerida Shalafanav, the Aliyah Shalafanav. The one case is when it's a Yerida Shalafanav, the Aliyah Shalafanav. So Yerida Lafanav means coming down in front of you. That's the classic case where you're going to be Chayiv. The Aliyah Shalafanav, but if it's going up behind you, that's the case of going up, that you don't get exiled. Can the Aliyah Shalafanav be Yerida Shalafanav? The other Bryce is talking about when it's an Aliyah Shalafanav, which means that you're going to go, sounds like you're going to go pick something up in front of you, and if you're going down to pick it up, that's going to be Hunter, and that's the case of Yerida L'Tzarech Aliyah. That's what we need. And I was just going to finish up the contradiction. The Yerida is Shalach Hora. It sounds like you're going down. It's like very heavy. You have to go down. Behind you, that's going to be obligated. Time to be Yerida Shalafanav Vishalach Hora. The other Bryce is talking about going down, whether it's in front of you or behind you. That's always going down. You're going to be Chayiv Belas. And Kan Aliyah Shalafanav Vishalach Hora. Or if you're going up, whether it's in front of you going up or behind you going up, that is going to be exempt. But you see that one of these scenarios is you're going, you're going down in order to come up, and yet you are exempt and not obligated. So on that, the Gemara says, Lema Kitanai. Lema Kitanai. Yeah, this question of Rabbi Abo. This brisa in this brisa it mentions that it sounds like I read the circular that you're going to be Sayyid, which is consistent with what we said earlier. That I read the circular is going to be Sayyid, not Pater. Because if it was Pater, then you have to answer up the price. We're not saying that. Okay. This lema ketanai, this idea that going up the stair and the stair falling down, but you're going up. Maybe this is actually a machlokas tonight. Haya'ol. Yeah. Back to the latter case.
The rung falls.
Yeah, the rung falls down, and you're going up. Oh, let's see. Lema ketanai haya'ol b'sfon the shtiva metaktav. So you're going up, and the stair goes down. One holds chayiv, one holds pater. It says the Gemara, "My lad the hakim." Is this not what they're arguing about? Gemara savar Yerida he, Gemara savar Aliyah he. So the question is, how do you view it? On the one hand, the rung is going down, so maybe that's derech Yerida. Therefore, you're chayiv exile. You're obligated to the exile. And one says no, since you are going up, it's called derech Aliyah, and therefore you will not get exiled. Says the Gemara, no. The Kuli Alma Aliyah. Everyone agrees that in this case we view it as going up. Well, if that's true, So everyone should say that you're exempt from exile. What does it mean, chayiv? Below kasha, kan l'nizakin and kan l'galus. When it comes to damaging somebody, so there the Mishnah says it doesn't matter. Echad shogeg, echad mezid, derech aliyah, derech yerida. You're chayiv for damaging. When you're damaging somebody, even if you're going up and the stair falls, you're for sure obligated to pay no matter what. Kan l'galus, when it talks about galus, exile, then it's going to make a difference if you're going down or you're going up. Maybe they're both talking about galus, but that's true. And how come one's saying chayiv, one's saying pater? So that we say below kasha. Had isli, had lo isli. One is like infestation of worms. You should be more careful, and you weren't. So that's already carved amazing. Even if you're going up. Yeah, even if you're going up. They're not infested with worms. Rather below kasha. One is very loose, and you should have been more careful. And therefore, if it falls, you're not going to get exiled because it's already carved amazing. And the one that's not loose, that you could not do nothing about, that's inadvertent, and that you will get exiled. Yeah.